Welcome to Being in Practice.
I'm Erin Davis. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a therapist.
I'm Dani Dwyer-Willingham. I use they, she pronouns, and I'm a quantum somatic coach. And we're a couple of queer, neurodivergent, multi-passionates here to get curious and unpack elements of collective and individual experiences through our intuitive, trauma-informed lenses.
We're both practitioners and people in our own constant discovery, here to provide education, entertainment, and an exploration on the practice of being, as messy and as multidimensional as it can be.
Let's be in practice together.
As a foreword to this podcast, we would like to credit Jaquette Timmons for the term financial intimacy, which we'll be using several times throughout this episode.
Welcome back to Being in Practice podcast. I'm Dani Dwyer-Willingham, they, she.
I'm Erin Davis, they, them.
And we have an amazing topic today. We also have an amazing guest to talk about this with us. And today we will be covering such a big one for, I think, everyone on the planet. Most people have thought about money in their lives.
Definitely.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Great. So I guess specifically honing in today around healing into financial intimacy, which I think, especially in the society that probably most of our listeners live in and that I know we live in, we are not taught typically to have true understanding and intimacy with our money, with our resources, in a way that doesn't come from greed or scarcity or lack. And this is
healthy, right?
An unhealthy perspective and perception and embodiment of how we handle money. It's pretty jacked. Yeah. So today we're going to be talking to our guest, Melissa, and I'm going to let Erin introduce her in a minute or in a second. To talk about healing into financial intimacy. So Erin, would you like to intro our guest?
Yes. Today we have Melissa Dorman with us. She is now a real estate agent and owns a real estate team. I say that wrong, but you have a real estate team. Melissa, you started as a social worker. That's kind of where your professional life began. And I'm very familiar with your story. You started as a social worker. I think was two really big moments in your life that has gotten you to the point where you are now. And I'll talk about that in a second. But you started as a social worker. You lived in India in a slum for like a year because you were kind of running away from your gayness, your queerness, as I think you would say. And then you kind of woke up and realized you needed to come back. So you saw a lot of poverty. You saw like probably the poorest of the poor in the world, some of the poorest of the poor in the world. And then you came back, and then I know it's, the timeline's a little messy, but then the next big event that kind of propelled you from social work into being financially free now was your dad's death and how hard that was for you. And I'm sure you'll talk a little bit more about that today, but you have built your own wealth. You started, you did not have besides like obviously some of the like natural privileges you have as a white person, you did not start from inheritance and trusts, and you built your wealth. And so I think that's why Dani and I have invited you on this podcast today, because I love how a big part of how you talk about finances is mindset and how you've done it yourself. And it feels accessible to all of our listeners to be able to work on changing one's mindset, right? Not everyone can start with an inheritance, but anyone can change how they think.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm excited to have you today. But yeah.
And I just want to point out, because of obviously the work that I do is so somatic, we can change how we think, and we also get to change how we feel, because I think,
totally.
I can bring my own experience into it a little bit, but as someone who used to have like actual panic attacks talking about money, I have had to change the way that it feels in my body because I had such a trauma response ingrained. Even us doing this podcast is because of a decade of work around changing my feelings and my trigger responses around money. So I feel like so many of us are invalidated in that's just not something people talk about. And especially as female socialized people, I think, I mean, and I was raised in such a heterotypical way, and lived such a heterotypical life for such a long time that I was taught to be so disempowered around money, and reclaiming that has been, I mean, such a journey. And I know also, Melissa, so much of the work that you do now is like helping teach and empower other female socialized people, other queer folks, other marginalized communities, how to embrace this journey of healing into financial intimacy, because we need like healed leaders in this world. So we're so happy to have you here today. So give us all your wisdom.
Yeah, hopefully we hit the high notes there.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Is there anything else you'd like to highlight about your journey for us?
I mean, I think you did a great job. I started out really in the humanitarian world and social work world, and had a real passion for helping people. And I was able to see firsthand the impact of money to help people through problems and have the resources that they need. And then it really hit home for me in my own family, as my dad got Alzheimer's and he got really ill. And my middle class family was just severely underprepared for his retirement. And that was my wake-up call. That was the moment that I realized that if I didn't change my relationship with money, that I would have the same fate as my family. And so it really changed my life and started my wealth building journey.
And when you kind of had that realization, like, what were the first steps that you took to start healing your own journey or healing your own relationship with money?
Yeah, the first step. So I was actually a social worker working in LA County Jail at the time. And so, fun fact, there's a lot of downtime in jail, even if you're just working there. And so I just started researching. I realized my family had this huge, overwhelming problem, which is we couldn't afford the $7,000 a month that it would cost for a home care worker for my dad. And so I just started researching, how do you build wealth? How do you do this? And I looked up all the various ways, and I stumbled into real estate, and I quickly realized that it was the easiest and required the least amount of technical knowledge, and was the most approachable, kind of like the build wealth for dummies route. And if you could do addition and subtraction, you can probably do real estate. So then from that point, I really started self-educating. I stumbled across this website called Bigger Pockets, which is like a Facebook for real estate investors. And they just had tons of free information, tons of podcasts. Their goal was really to make real estate investing approachable to the average person. And they just interview people on, what did you do right? What did you do wrong? And I listened to hundreds of episodes, and I really just self-educated by reading books and listening to podcasts for a year. 20 hours a week, actually. I spent 20 hours a week just studying.
Yeah, that's great.
And how long did it take you from the time that you began that journey into, I guess, I have bought and sold 2 homes, but in a marriage. So I was not spearheading the process. So I feel like I still have a lot to learn. So how long did it take you, do you feel like, to self-educate enough to like enter into that world? And like, what was that journey like for you? Where did you start? Because I think so many of our listeners are like, that sounds great, and also like highly unattainable. So like, where did you, I mean, starting from the research point, like what was the lead in for you to the industry?
Yeah, so after studying for a year and just getting an understanding of the mechanics of how this works and what are some of the major pitfalls, and just, how do you do the math around this stuff? And once I felt confident enough, and I think this is where a lot of people make the mistake, is they just keep studying and they don't start practicing. And so when I moved up to Portland in 2016 from LA, I decided to send out about $300 worth, so 500 letters to duplex owners, just individually, mom and pop owners, just saying, hey, I am looking to buy a property. Would you be willing to sell yours? I'm looking to close in the next, 30 to 60 days. And I sent that out, and I started getting calls back, and I ended up connecting with a woman who was a realtor in a different state, and she was trying to sell her duplex that her parents owned. And so she understood the process of selling, and I didn't, to be honest. I didn't even know what escrow was. But I was willing to take the next steps. And I think that's a big key in this process, is you can't know everything. You just need to know how to make the next step and trust yourself enough to make the next step and the next step. And so, I bought that first duplex from this woman, And I didn't know anything about values when I got here. I was usually like looking up Redfin values and trying to figure out, am I overpaying? Am I underpaying? And I started networking. I met some local investors, and one of them walked the property with me very graciously. And at the end of the walk, he said, if you're not going to buy this, then I will. And I knew I had found something really great. And so that first one, it ended up appraising $50,000 more than I was purchasing it for, to my big surprise. And in that moment, I realized, wow, I spent about $300 and 30 hours of my time to make $50,000 in equity, which is about what a social worker makes per year. And that was when the light bulb turned on for me, that I could start doing this more, not just for myself, but I could also help other people.
Totally.
Yeah, and just to emphasize, because I think it can sound like, oh, I stole that woman's equity. This woman was very happy to sell it off market. She was a competent realtor. She understood the dynamics of selling off market, that she would lose some equity doing that. But her family was thrilled. They had bought it just three or 4 years prior. They'd done some renovations, and in those 3 years, they were making $150,000 off of that sale. So they made a lot of money, and they left some money for me too, which was really nice.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
I was curious if you've experienced, I don't know, I can't speak for all of our listeners, but if you experienced like that scarcity mindset stuff, how did you work through that? Because I think we all, like Dani kind of said in the intro, right? Like a lot of people, their relationship to money is from a very unhealthy place, maybe from that scarcity mindset, a lack mindset, those sorts of things. That's the perspective a lot of people, I think, start from. And I'm curious if you started, like, if we're going into mindset more wise, like that, if you started from there and how you got to not that, because I don't think you're in that place now.
Yeah, I think overall, I just started to see sort of the big picture of how society was going. You know, as a sociology major in my undergrad, social worker working with people on the margins, I was seeing where society ends up if you follow the prescription that society gives you, which is to go to school, learn how to be a good worker, clock in for 30 to 50 hours a week. Hopefully you pay into a 401k during that time so that you can retire at the end of your life. And this is the prescription that we're fed from day one. And we all kind of just do it. We get in line and we go. And I was watching my dad's life, and in the end of his life, and he didn't have anything to show for it. He was one of the hardest working people I've ever known. The company that he worked for went bankrupt, and he lost all of his retirement funds. And there's so many Americans that are in the same spot. They're underprepared for retirement. And I just realized, like, this prescription doesn't work. I think for me, it was reorganizing my mind. Everything that everybody said was safe, you know, clock into a job for 40 years, is actually not safe. That's your time, and your time is so valuable. So I kind of switched the paradigm. Instead of thinking like money is scarce, I started thinking time is scarce, and like time is the most valuable resource. And if I'm going to enjoy my time here on this earth, I need to figure out this money equation so it will maximize the amount of time that I have to spend however I want. And so suddenly, you know, doing the prescription of getting a job and buying a single family house and all that stuff, to me, those things like look really risky, because you're basically signing up for, you know, 40 years of your time, versus if you know, can think outside of the box, create alternative forms of income, passive forms of income, you can shorten that necessary work time, and then you are able to have your time back. And so for me, you know, things like 401ks, things like, you know, a job, things like buying even a single family house are quite risky, versus what I do, which is invest in an asset that can then, once it's creating cash flow, pay for my liabilities like a single family home, if that makes sense.
So it sounds like something that you're also talking about is kind of debunking this myth that, you know, we all have the same 24 hours in the day, because time is provided by access to resources, access to money, access to energy. And, you know, we talked a little bit about this before we were recording, but people who, especially people of color and Black folks and people who are like more marginalized under systemic oppression, don't have the same access to resources, to money, to create time, to create more resources. There are such barriers in place, very, I mean, so many layers of barriers that I feel like, you know, and we can only speak from the places of privilege that we come from, to varying degrees. We are all queer folks and live in the marginalized, you know, world in this society, and also still have, you know, access that people of color do not. So, and I think acknowledging just like, even for female socialized people, we were not educated to, you know, treat our time with value. And I think so much of it is values based. So much of this conversation is worth based, because if we do not feel and truly like understand our worth and our value as humans, of course, we're not going to value our time, to value our money, and allow our life to reflect those values. And I think what it sounds like to me is that you've taken adversity and, you know, things that you experienced that kind of served as your, you know, wake up calls, and you've turned it into aligning your life with your values. And from the base understanding that giving yourself money and creating wealth for yourself is giving yourself freedom to do everything else in your life, including give back. And I think that's another myth that we need to just tap right now, because thinking and believing that having money is selfish, or that even having money needs to be for anyone else,
or that having money, the people that have money are bad.
Exactly. And
all of those.
I think, again, so much as female socialized people, like that is, it's like, if you're wealthy, you're bad. And also if you make money, it has to be for somebody else, right? It can't just be us. And also, like, I have big wealth goals because I want to be able to serve the marginalized communities that I care about to my maximum capacity.
Definitely.
And I can only do that if I have the time and if I have the money to facilitate that time.
Energy.
Absolutely. As a single parent, I'm like, I need all of the support that I can get, but it has to come from a financial baseline of like empowered freedom.
Abundance,
for me to for me to like show up for the folks, and to be able to provide accessible care. If I want to provide sliding scale, if I want to provide you know, lower cost resources for people, I've got to have the money somewhere to be able to do that. Because if I'm letting myself, you know, fall flat over and over again around creating the resources in abundance that I actually need for like myself and my kid, I can't help anybody. So it feels like you've now, how long has this journey been? You said you bought your first place in 2016, your first duplex?
Did I get 2017. Yeah, 2017. So
how long?
Basically over the course of 5 years, I went from being a social worker full-time to then building a top real estate team in Portland, and becoming financially free with like a 6-figure passive income by buying rental properties through that process, and not using a lot of money to do that, to be honest, but just a lot of it being creative financing, thinking through problem solving with people, to be able to create seller finance deals, which is where you pay the seller directly rather than paying the bank a mortgage every month, and creating in that way an annuity for somebody, creating a retirement for them, even as I build my own retirement. And so it's this beautiful, like, you know, very, very beautiful exchange between me and the seller. And I've actually, you know, developed very meaningful relationships with my sellers through this process, where I'm able to change their life and mine at the same time, and take care of the tenants very well. So it's been a really, really amazing journey the last 5-6 years to be able to do all that.
Yeah.
For maybe our listeners that don't know, could you define financial freedom?
Yeah, it's a big word. Yeah, it's a big word, big idea. Financial freedom is when all of your living expenses and the things that you live off of regularly are paid by passive forms of income. And so in other words, if you didn't work another day, your passive income from assets would cover all of your living expenses. And so it's like financial freedom means that you don't have to work. So I reached that goal last summer. I hit that number for myself. But I do really just love what I do as a realtor, being able to help other people build wealth, because I think a lot of people don't know this. You know, you hear realtor, and I think a lot of people hear like cheesy salesman, like car salesman, you know. But what I think people don't see is through this other lens, which, you know, in 2019, the consumer price survey found that that 30% of all American household wealth is in their primary residence. And for lower income people, that's 75%. So 75% of lower income wealth is in their home. In other words, I'm basically helping people build wealth one house at a time so that, if they have a car accident or if their kid gets diagnosed with cancer or if anything really tragic happens in their life, they have a resource, right? And they're able to sell that asset and they're able to solve that problem. But so many of the people that I was working with as a social worker just didn't have any assets, didn't have any other choices. And that's what put them on the margins of society. And so in a lot of ways, my realtor work that I do now is just an extension of my social work, trying to empower people to be able to sustain their own lives.
Yeah. I do see how that line for you, the line between social work and realtor is pretty thin for you. And I know you always joke about how those social work skills come in handy for the work you do. And I know I love how you find it's all about win-win-win for you in your work and everything you do.
I do. I have a question as a tenant myself now for the first time in a decade. How do you find yourself balancing owning all of these rental properties? And I mean, I'm putting this term on you, but like to be an ethical, land land person. Like how do you navigate that? Because I know also there is so much, activity, especially in Oregon where we live around tenant rights. And I think landlords are often demonized. And I think some of them for good reason. And I think also it is really important to see the other side of, someone doing like more ethical, symbiotic, like real estate purchasing and renting and, providing what like actual resources for people. Like again, as a single parent, I wouldn't have a place to live if not for the person who owns my house. So I'm like super grateful. And, I would just kind of love to hear your perspective on that as someone so intricately involved.
Yeah, that's a great question. So my approach with my tenants is that I have loving, caring relationships with all of them. I buy them Christmas gifts at each year. When they move in, I get them gifts. I'm checking in on them. We have a friendship. We have a relationship. And I'm always trying to encourage them to become an owner, and so if they want to break their lease to buy, I do not charge them for that. I want to help them into home ownership. I think especially in Portland, it is a place where landlords are demonized, and there's plenty of stories to support that for sure. But I think it really is a disservice when we do that, because it's really not an us versus them game. I know I think like in American politics in general, we like to do an us versus them. It's not. It's that we are community, right? And there are some people that have the assets and resources to be able to buy properties and rent those out to other people. And at some point, those renters will hopefully be at the place where they do that for somebody else too. And it's sort of the cycle of life, And I think it's a service and it's a real duty and a real honor to be able to provide housing for other people. And I think when we demonize landlords like we have done in Portland, unfortunately, what ends up happening is we create laws that are not very wise. We create laws that scare local landlords. And for instance, like during COVID, 30% of all single family rentals went off the market and they were sold because people did not want to be a landlord anymore because they felt like they were up against the world and that people were seeing them through this really negative lens and then trying to punish them for the service that we provide. And really that to me is not the right approach. We need to collaboratively solve problems that are win-win, where the landlord's feeling protected, that they've, really put themselves out there. They're taking a huge risk letting somebody use their place. And, there has to be this collaborative, caring relationship, and they need some protections as well. And of course the tenant needs protection so that they, they're often, because they're a tenant, are often in a more marginalized position. And so they do need more protections. So I think it's just, we have to see it through this communal lens. We have to see it through this, everybody's a human in this aspect. And as soon as we start dividing, us versus them, I think we get into really tricky places that actually don't serve the tenants at all.
I think that's such an important perspective to share. So thank you. I mean, you speak from such an empowered place. And I think, so much of this healing into financial intimacy topic is feeling empowered around finances. So how do you feel like you've, changed things in your life, changed your mindset? Like what have you, I guess, if you could specifically give us some, not to put you on the spot, but like, how do you feel like you have been able to overcome into this place of empowerment and feeling financially, or not even feeling financially free, having created financial freedom and healing into this financial intimacy, this place of financial intimacy.
Yeah, I'm glad to share it. You know, with my dad's passing, that was a big turning point for me, right? That was where the light bulb turned on of like, I need to change my relationship with money. But it didn't just happen overnight. It wasn't like, and now I'm fully enlightened on the process of financial education. It took a lot of rewriting the script. And I like to use the analogy of like a Japanese garden. You know, our minds are these beautiful places that have so many thoughts and so many ideas and so many beliefs about the world. But we have to very delicately prune out the weeds and the thoughts and the feelings that don't support our goals. And so for me, you know, my background, I was born middle class. I graduated in 2009 into the Great Recession. For my first year out of college, I dumpster dived for 70% of my food for me and 5 of my other roommates. And we ate like kings and queens, to be honest. But like, I was as scrappy and frugal as you could possibly imagine, you know, living in India on $1 a day. Like that was my identity. That was a core piece of my identity. And in order to build wealth, I actually had to deconstruct that identity. And I had to recognize that a lot of that identity was actually built on some pretty poor presumptions, that money was bad, that money was evil, that it was going to make me greedy, that I had to steal or harm other people in order to get more of it, that participating in it in any level of, you know, building a business or something made me part of this oppressive system. I had to rewire my brain on what my belief system around was with money, because what would happen is anytime I started to get money, I would feel guilty and it would just slide right through my fingers, you know, and I would self-sabotage. And I realized over time, there's actually this part of me that almost like my unconscious part desired scarcity. It was like this, you know, thrill of being able to live paycheck to paycheck, point at the world and say, it's not my fault. You know, I'm queer, I'm a woman, you know, capitalism, patriarchy, all these things. And I didn't have to take any ownership of my own fate and my own destiny and what I was doing with my life. And it was when I started to recognize, like, yes, all of those oppressive systems matter, but you know what actually matters the most? Me. What I do in this world and how I take actions is the biggest indicator of how my life's going to turn out. It's, you know, these oppressive systems will exist regardless, but like if I start savings and I start saving up for a property and I buy it and, you know, I start to change my social location, I start to change my wealth. And so it was a very intentional process. I mean, I would journal, I would do meditations, I would envision literally like in granular detail what it would feel like, taste like, smell like to be financially independent. What would I use my time for? How would it feel in my body to not be stressed out about money anymore? What would it feel like in my body to believe that I have abundance coming to me? And every time I take a step towards that, it is a step towards my enlightenment, not towards my oppression, and like rewrite these narratives that I had in my head. And it took a lot of time. And honestly, if you have time, I'll tell you this kind of interesting story that was a big pinnacle of me changing. You know, there's this book called Existential Kink. I don't know if you guys have read it. It's really, really awesome. Actually, I think Erin turned me onto the book. But she has this concept called havingness level. And havingness level is like the low and high point in your life of what you feel comfortable having. And so in terms of money, you know, some people, when you have less than $1,000 in your bank account, you start to worry, you start to feel really like afraid. For some people, it's negative 500, you know, and for some people, they have to have at least $100,000 in their checking account to feel comfortable. That's on the low end. But on the high end, maybe, you know, after you get like $5,000 in your checking account, you start to feel guilty or you feel bad or whatever, right? There's a high threshold too. And so for me, you know, back in 2018, that threshold was around $2,000 or $3,000 a month. That's what I felt comfortable having. And anytime I had less than that, I felt really nervous. And anytime I had more than that, I started to feel uncomfortable. And the universe kind of provided me in what I like to say an opportunity to grow. Basically, I found out in 2018 that my wife had fallen in love with my best friend and she was leaving me. And in that process, she also decided to sue me for half of my wealth at that time, which was, I just had one property. I didn't have very much wealth, but I did have the equity of the property I told you about earlier. And so I was like dedicated to not, that was my first investment. I was not about to give it up in the divorce. And so we worked out an alimony agreement where I would pay her $2,000 a month, which was what I was used to living on at that time. So all of a sudden I needed to pay her, I needed to pay me, and I needed to find out a plan how to do that. And so that's really was the beginning of me starting my real estate realtor team. Was I had to solve that problem. And in doing so, I started taking the steps I needed. I started doing affirmations every morning. I started reading books on how to start a real estate team. I started doing the processes that one would need to take to manifest that in their life, and change my belief system around it. And sure enough, the universe, introduced me to my business partner, Yasha, and we started a team together. And it took like maybe 2 or 3 months before I went from making about $3,000 a month to making $30,000 a month, which you would think would be super exciting, right? Oh my gosh, I'm going to solve this problem. I'm not, I can pay this alimony. Great. But the problem is I actually didn't have the mindset at the time. So I felt so depressed making that much money because I had all these negative beliefs about rich people, about people who had money. And I just felt like an awful person. And so what I did is I actually, in January 1st, New Year's year 2019, I went out into Forest Park to meditate, and with the help of a little bit of psilocybin, if I'm honest. And I sat next to the stream and I was just meditating and trying to like detach from these old narratives about money and try to install new belief system. And in that moment, I was looking at the stream. I saw this little reed in the water, like a straw. And the water was just like flowing through it really powerfully, right? And I'm just watching this, and every once in a while, the reed would sort of wiggle and bend in on itself. And when it bent in, the water couldn't get through anymore, and it would just kind of build up and sort of like pound this little reed until it would straighten out again, and then the water would go through. And in that moment, I realized the analogy of what was happening. Every time I was questioning, am I good enough for this? And, am I going to mess this up? Should I even have this much money? When I was doing that, I was bending in on myself. I was getting depressed. I was starting to self-analyze, and I was making it about me. But really, it was the stream was like the universe, right? The universe trying to do something really powerful through me, which is to help a lot of people build wealth in their life and safety nets for their families. And I just had to get out of my own way and like allow the universe to work through me and to use these gifts that I have. And as soon as I did that, like it all switched, within like probably 18 months of that point, those $30,000 a month, those $30,000 months turned into 6-figure months. And I was not paralyzed by it anymore. I was really grateful for it. I was investing it wisely. It just didn't become an issue anymore because my havingness level changed, right? My beliefs around what I was worthy of having altered, and I no longer felt bad about having more money. I felt really positive, and I had good associations with it. And then I started to do great things with it.
Yeah, it's incredible how closely linked, everything is to our self-worth and our ability to, like, it's almost like having this level for self-love, you think about it in terms of that, right? Like you're having this level for money increased as you're having this quote unquote having this level for your own worth increased.
Yeah.
Your own self-value, your own self-love.
Yes.
It's funny. I feel like that's relatable to a lot of topics.
I mean, it's like our core beliefs and what we hold in our bodies inform the decisions and the lives that we create for ourselves until we, like you said, kind of change the narrative on that. But also, like, it can be a lot of work. And even this timeline that you're talking about, 6 years, I think it's 6 years essentially, like, that's a long time to be changing a narrative around something. And it's a blip in time, but also like, I think something that I didn't want to face in my life was like it was like, this is a journey. This takes dedication. This takes education. This takes rewiring. And that can be painful. Pulling out thorns from wounds is painful. And then they can heal. And I feel like, first step is awareness. And then it sounds like you just really kind of embraced this altered perception and the journey of that, even as up and down as it was. And, you mentioned depression, and do you feel like anything else came through for you that, in your mental health journey, like what, I guess, could listeners relate to in that journey with you? Having gone from, this place of financial disconnection into financial intimacy.
Yeah, I mean, it was terrifying. When my dad passed away in 2017, I quit my day job. Like, I had $16,000 in my checking account. I had just bought my first duplex. but seeing his life and his death and how that all went down, I couldn't go back to work. Like, I had to do something different with my life. I had to make the change that I knew he hadn't made. And so it was absolutely crazy. I do not recommend quitting your job with $16,000 in your checking account, but it was it really put a fire under me to like figure this out quickly. And so I think for me, some of the other more difficult mental journey of it was that I woke up terrified every morning. You know, when you have a job to clock in and out of, it's like, okay, well, you can just get money. You know where money's coming from. But when you're 100% responsible for where your money's going to come from, and for me being a realtor, that, you know, that means I had to go find a client. I had to go help them find the house that they wanted, or the investment that they wanted. And then we'd have to wait another 30 to 45 days until that transaction closed before I got paid. And so it was a very long process before I became more successful in that career. And those days, those months of not having an income and having to figure that out was terrifying. And so honestly, I would wake up each day, my knees would be shaking. I would be like wanting to just stay in bed, of course, because that would be easier. But I just would wake up early. I would do these affirmations. I would tell myself that this is possible, that I can do this. I can get out of bed. And this is the first and hardest step of my day. But if I can do this, then I can keep going. I would take cold showers to train my brain that, like, I can do hard things. I can do hard things. I can go door knock a whole neighborhood. I can cold call 2 hours a day and try to find a client. I can do hard things. And like, it was a literal process of training my brain to grow comfortable with being uncomfortable. And like, that feeling of uncomfortable means that I'm doing it right, and like really retrain my brain in that way. And it allowed me to be very gritty and to do the things that other people weren't willing to do. And that was a big part of my success.
Yeah. Comfort with discomfort.
It's a big one for most topics, I feel like.
Well, and that I like what you said about that being uncomfortable means I'm doing it right. That's an incredible reframe. Definitely.
Yeah,
I think our listeners can take that related to money for sure.
Yeah. I feel so privileged that I had this social work and psychology background, you know, being a therapist and understanding a lot of how the mind works, and that it really prefers organization. It really prefers what it already knows, even if what it already knows is not healthy. It really prefers that. And being able to recognize that I am the one steering the ship, and I can actually train this little noggin to do whatever I want it to do. It just takes a lot of persistence and re-altering my framework and what I believe and what I think. It just takes practice. And so I think I did some really crucial things. I surrounded myself with people who are successful in real estate so that it would remind me that this is a true reality, because I was moving from a world of a bunch of social workers who honestly thought I was crazy and with good reason, because their frame of reference was that there's no way I'll be able to do this. And so I just started surrounding myself with people who did believe that they could do this, and it helped me to believe that as well. I did affirmations every morning. I'd take these cold showers. I would do things that would like very intentionally retrain my brain to think differently, positively, in with new frameworks that about opportunity and that what was possible could happen.
I think that's so important, right? The community we surround ourselves with, because I think a lot of us do need, and it's proven, right, too. I feel like there's evidence all around out there about how being around the people that maybe are out of our comfort zone or are doing things that are outside of our comfort zone, like showing us what's possible. Like, I think, you know, I think that's a big part of what changed for me in my life, with knowing you, Melissa, and just being around the people that, you know, as we're friends, you know, the people that you surround yourself with, they really, all of that community aspect was a big part of like what made me start to think differently about what was possible for my life and myself, and in all sorts of ways, including money. But I think the community aspect's also a good key takeaway for our people. Who are you surrounding yourself with, and are they stretching you a little bit?
Something I do also want to bring in is neurodivergency in money. Melissa, are you neurodivergent?
Or I don't know. I'm very different. I don't know, maybe.
That's all right. I feel like
pretty
for
neurotic.
me, for so many of our listeners, as someone with ADHD and as someone with dyscalculia, which is basically dyslexia for numbers, like a learning disability for numbers. I literally couldn't see numbers in my brain. Like they don't compute in my brain. So for me, money was this overwhelming concept that wasn't real, that like, you know, in this late stage capitalism place was just used to control people. So I like disconnected from the idea that money could serve me. And I had a very, I guess, maybe different experience in that by the time I was 18, I was making six figures. And then very quickly, like I built a lot of, I can't call it wealth. I made a lot of money very early on in my life and then like lost it all. And now I'm in the process of like reclaiming abundance for myself and like healing the wounds that I've had around like money is real. And I hate the like in the world, especially that I'm in, of like the energy work, it's like money is energy and it is also like a resource. And to be attuned to that resource is to be able to, you know, function in this society in the ways that we have to, like we kind of said earlier at the beginning, to be able to like serve ourselves and the people we care about. Also just acknowledging that like that journey for me took so long and so much healing of like the things that were at the core of my, like you said, like the disorganization in my brain around it. Literally, I will say 2 months ago, money clicked in my brain as like real 2 months ago. And I've been working as real.
Interesting.
I told my best friend, I was like, I woke up and I sent her a voice note and I was like, money is real in my head for the first time in my entire life. It makes sense. And I could, the numbers, the fear that I had around numbers, like melted away, but it was a byproduct of all of this other work and trauma healing that I've been doing. And it was like, only then did I have the capacity to heal into very new financial levels of financial intimacy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you got that. That's so interesting.
And I told Erin earlier, I just got access to like a large chunk of money that had been sitting in the background for like years. And with the help of my financial advisor, I will say, I think people hear the term financial advisor and think that's for rich people. I am a single parent I am building a practice. Like I am, you know, we're ground growing here, people. And having a financial advisor, like not only helped me get through my divorce because I had no idea what I was doing as a disempowered stay-at-home parent. But also now helps me like stay organized and does so much of the work that like my ADHD brain can't and does not want to do.
Anyone can have one.
Anyone can have one.
Yes. I feel the same way.
I feel like it's so important as in this journey of we talked about community, but like allowing ourselves to be supported in this journey of healing into financial intimacy. Like use professionals. There are so many people like you in you know that in the real estate world, but also like in the self-care world and in the like financial advisory world. What is it called?
Financial planning.
Like financial planning. Thank you.
Totally.
Like wherever you are, wherever any of our listeners are in their journey, like get as much support as you can by people who understand what it feels like to embody abundance, what it feels like to build a business, if that's like what you're doing, what it feels like to manage money well from a place of safety and from a place of like true understanding that this is like a resource to help build the life that you deserve, you know?
Yeah. I feel like too, for our listeners, we'll have on our website maybe some links to some financial planners. Like I work with one that's queer confident and I haven't paid a dime to her yet. And I've had her for 4 or 5 months now. Anyway, sorry. Side note for our listeners, though.
I think it's important to highlight that there are ethical people doing financial work. We've just got to look for them, especially as queer folks, especially as marginalized folks. Like there are people like you who I know one of your, you know, highest goals is to like support other queer people in building wealth for themselves. And
absolutely.
I think it's so important just to remind all of us that like those resources are available. It might feel overwhelming, but like that's what we're here for. We will help provide some resources. And also like if you feel like you can't start anywhere, start there.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like so much of the journey really is about creating awareness around what are your thoughts and beliefs around money, and getting really honest with yourself about that, you know. And I think it's so easy just to take for granted what we've been conditioned to think, whether it was from religion or for our families or just from the group of people that we surround ourselves with. We just take for granted these viewpoints and we don't really analyze them. And a lot of them just do not serve us. And I think like one of the things that I really like is this concept that we should all be millionaires. Like every person in America should be a millionaire because that's what it costs to retire at the end of your life. And so rather than like millionaire, you know, a lot of times when you say that word, it brings up different associations in people's minds, right? And a lot of people, particularly progressive, you know, marginalized, BIPOC, LGBT folks that have been disenfranchised, you know, in our communities, you hear the word millionaire and you automatically have such negative associations with it, like oppression or right. And if you have those negative associations with it, you will never become it. Right. You actually can't become the thing you resent. Your body is going to stop you from it and your mind's going to stop you from it. And so having a new imagination, creating a new imagination for what it means to be a millionaire and having positive associations with that. Like being a millionaire means that I can donate lots of money each year to my favorite charities. Being a millionaire means that I can feed myself healthy food. Being a millionaire means I can take care of my mom as she becomes elderly. Being a millionaire means that I can take care of myself at the end of my life, like creating different associations that it means I can be generous. It means that I don't have to think twice about covering the bill when we go out with friends or, you know, that sort of stuff. Like when you start to change the narrative around what does it mean to have money, then you can start to embody figuring out how to make more of it without hurting people.
I think that's another thing to touch on is like, you know, it's easy for me to say, but I do truly believe there is enough for everyone. I do think the hoarding of wealth is a massive issue, especially in this country. And I think the redistribution of wealth is only possible when the people that have it let it go, you know, but I mean, that's a whole other journey over there. But I think that, you know, having the responsibility as a steward of financial abundance is to also understand that the flow through you is like in service of others.
Yes. Definitely.
Yes. Yeah. I think that, you know, I also hold, you know, the mega rich, you know, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in helping people become that. I'm really just able to see that like these negative sentiments we have about, you know, the person who has $1 to $5 million at the end of their life. These negative associations we have with that, we have to change that paradigm. That should become what everybody is trying to be. Everybody's trying to do that because that's what it looks like to be self-sufficient, to be stable, to be able to solve your own problems. And like, we need to destigmatize the $1 to $5 million person. Like that person is not your enemy. That is the person we want to help every single person become. And if we can do that, then there shouldn't be the mega wealthy, right? The distribution of wealth should be that everybody has this amount to be able to take care of themselves. But if we stigmatize that baseline ability to become self-sufficient, if we think that person is bad, we've got it all wrong. Like that person is the one that you're trying to become so that you can also take care of your communities, so that there's not poverty and there's not all, you know, everything that comes along with a lack of resources. And I wish I could just like wave a wand over America and be like, everybody destigmatizes the idea of becoming a millionaire so that we could start to financially educate people, because that stigma actually serves the mega wealthy. It keeps you working keeps you working a 9 to 5, keeps you working and living paycheck to paycheck, keeps you in this like very small life, right? Because if you can't become a millionaire because being a millionaire is bad, then what do you have to do? You have to just give all your labor to somebody else. And so
I want to just like shake that belief out of my body.
Yeah. Like every time I hear like a negative thing when people say like millionaire, I'm like, whoa, slow down. Like I think what you're having is that idea that distribution of wealth should be better, but guess how that works? The person who doesn't have a lot of wealth, have to have a millionaire. Yeah, exactly. Like you're so focused on the other people losing money, which I get that, but actually the distribution has to change by you becoming more wealthy, LGBT people becoming more wealthy, BIPOC people becoming more wealthy. That is how it gets redistributed. So if you have a negative connotation and association with wealth, you're actually getting in the way of that wealth distribution.
Oh, wow. What a mind-opening perspective. I just feel like my whole body is like, are you sure?
Well, this is Melissa.
Thank you for helping blow my mind open. I really appreciate it.
It's so cool you're having a mind
I'm
opening
having
experience
so
right
much.
now.
I'm having such an experience.
I'm so
feeling that
Me
relationship.
too. I mean, and if I'm doing this, I feel like you're just going to so benefit our listeners. I so appreciate everything you've shared with us today. Do you want to ask the final question?
Yeah. What final words of advice or encouragement do you have for listeners who are seeking to heal and develop financial intimacy in their lives?
Yeah, I think it's just really important, on the lines of that wealth distribution, to really see your own personal wealth development and empowerment and enlightenment process as part of healing the overall community. And so I think it's really easy to allow these limiting beliefs around money, like money is bad, money is going to make me greedy, all those sorts of things. Those, when you start to see it as those are just another extension of that belief that I'm not enough, when it's like these core beliefs about ourselves that we don't deserve to have a good life, we don't deserve to have wealth. When you start to deconstruct those things and start to see money as just an extension of who you are, if you are a person who is generous, when you have more money, you will be a very generous person with more money. And if you cultivate the type of person that you are as you develop enlightenment around money, it just becomes an extension of yourself that you can be more of that in the world. And so I think to be able to see the process of wealth building not as this soul-sucking thing that makes you a bad person, but to actually re-envision it as this path of enlightenment, where the more that you prune your mind of these negative belief systems around money, and the more that you see it as this servant to you, as this energy that you get to pull in and push out and create new valuable things in the world that help people, the more that you see it as that process of enlightenment, the more that you can actually grow and not get in your own way. And so, for me, building wealth has always been this process of mindfulness, this process of enlightenment, this process of pruning the garden of my mind and helping myself to the place that I want to go by thinking of it through the lens of psychology and the lens of spirituality, and not seeing it as something that is divorced from that. And then just this one final note, in the process of building wealth and learning how money works and learning how to make more of it and all that sort of thing, I think the new challenge becomes is, when is it enough? When is it enough? Because I think it can become this never ending, I just want to get more and more and more, and I'm just going to keep pushing myself because now that I know how to do this thing, I could just continue to build and build and build. And I think there's a real trap there. I think, at a certain point, and it's going to be different for every person, but at a certain point, you do have enough. You cover your needs. You have the things that you want in your life. It's sustainable. You're financially independent. You're financially free. But then it becomes fostering a mentality of contentment. Content with having what you have and not continuing to, because it can become its own trap, right? We limit ourselves in earning money and in earning wealth because we have these deep core wounds that we're not enough for it. But those core wounds can also happen when you're building wealth, because you can believe that you're still not enough if you don't have X amount and X amount. And the problem is, the closer you get to that number, that threshold always moves. And so part of healing that core wound is not only this is how my financial enlightenment journey goes. I understand how money works. I understand that I'm deserving of it, but I also, at the tail end of it, deserve that this is enough and that I am enough having this much. And so I just encourage, as people go through this process, to not lose sight of that, to not just get so sucked into this is how you build, this is how you build. Building is good, building is exciting, but also find contentment, seek joy in the simple things. Don't get lost in materialism, don't get lost in greed. It can happen at any level. You can have $100, you can have $100 million, and you can get lost in greed. It's not the amount, it's not the zeros at the end. But just don't chase that and think that it's going to fulfill you. It's just one aspect of life. That is one aspect of enlightenment.
Beautiful.
I just want to say thank you. And also to everyone listening, y'all, queer people deserve wealth. Trans people deserve wealth. People of color deserve wealth. Marginalized folks deserve wealth. Single parents deserve wealth. Like all of us who have been told our whole lives that we do not deserve wealth, we do. And it is time for us as a community of empowered people to reclaim that for ourselves. And I think that you just helped with building such a foundation for our listeners to be able to do that. And you've given me so much to think about. I am so grateful for all of the wisdom you've shared with us today.
Yes. I am as well. So yeah, I know. I agree with Dani, and we've been friends for a long time, so I've heard a lot of this for a long time. But it's always still very empowering to like feel that again. Yeah,
I'm so glad. Such an honor to be on your guys' show. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for being in practice with us.
Yeah, and I just also want to add that on our website, we're going to have on our resources page, I'm going to have some books, book recommendations for people that are wanting to kind of dive in from more of an energetic spiritual place with money. I have some really good recommendations.
Trauma-informed spiritual place around money.
Definitely. Yes. So, and then also we're going to have some names and contact information for financial planners, specifically the one I work with that I said is earlier is queer competent, only wants to work with actually targeted populations. So we'll have a couple names up there. And then Melissa, is there anything that will be available on our website that relates to you and your work that you want us to display?
Yeah, you can put my contact info in there, where people can get a hold of me. Instagram, I have a website as well, the team that I run. If anybody's interested in getting started in real estate investing, it's my passion. I love to just take people out for coffee, kind of blow their mind on what's possible in that realm. It is far more accessible than you can imagine. Erin has had their own journey in this and realized like it is very attainable. It seems like it's so far out of range, but I was a social worker when I started this, and I was able to figure it out. I would love to help anybody I can as well.
I'll take you up on that
work
coffee.
With Melissa. And you're licensed to do real estate in Washington and Oregon, correct?
Yeah, Washington and Oregon.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Sky's the limit, y'all. Not even beyond the sky. No limits.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.